Dear angry white people, uh, Facebook is a plethora of, um, oh, what do comics call it when they have stuff? Anyways, Facebook is a wonderful, wonderful social system and cesspool. Uh, Yesterday, I noticed that there was a meme running around that was talking about the kid who was um, abducted by four black kids and then, shown on Facebook and televised, so to speak, and then, they were arrested, hate crime, everybody's up in anger. The meme, however, brought up something that needs to be addressed with white people. I, as a white person, understand what I will term white anger. I understand white people feeling marginalized. I understand some of what the alt-right is up in arms about. You can hate me for that, but that's kind of part of my job as a psychic or Reiki practitioner, as somebody who seeks spirituality over mundane bullshit. I had a conversation with people where I was told that I can't say that I'm proud to be white. I can say that I'm proud to be Irish. I can say that I'm proud to be German. I can say that I'm proud to be a whole bunch of different colors or countries. But to specifically say that I am white is now racist. And what I don't understand is we have a group called Black Lives Matter, and yet black people come from all over the world. Some are African, some are from Trinidad, some are from Jamaica, some are from, whatever. There's tons of countries that black people come from, and yet all Black Lives Matter is one terminology to encompass all black people. But white people can't be just white people. They have to be Irish people, they have to be German people, they have to be, Croatian, Russian, over and over and over again. And I'm like, that doesn't actually justify anything. That's just people being scared of white people being proud to be white. Now, what upset me here is, in this meme, it talked about how these thugs, blah, blah, blah. Now, a year, maybe two ago, there was a huge controversy among people calling black people thugs because the white people in power, probably right-wing Republicans, people like that, started referring to black people as thugs, which basically meant nigger. So when you're watching all these memes going around and you're watching the language that's going on, that's what you need to be watching. You need to be watching what this language is. For the same reason I won't call a black person a thug, I won't call a black person the N-word either, which I just said, because it's disrespectful. And because the community has said, please don't. And out of respect to my fellow human beings, who I would prefer not to look at in terms of the color of their skin, I'm trying to be respectful. When I approached people about this, I did not attack them. I just simply said, it's really not the best choice of words if you're going to make a meme about, four sociopathic teenagers who are angry. And what I basically got was a bunch of white people telling me that I was wrong. I got a bunch of white people trying to tell me that thug under definition of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but you didn't go and research into the black community. You didn't go and research what the black community itself has said by simply typing the word, thug is the new term for nigger, in Google. Because if you do that, you get NPR radio itself has an entire interview up on its site that says why we don't want to use the word thug, why even Obama using the term thug was wrong, and why black people no longer want the word thug as a reference to a black person, because they're trying to eliminate the issue of racism. So white people are now using the term thug again, and thug is just a nice term for the word nigger. And what are we doing? We just spreading the racism around. We're not actually dealing with it. We're not trying to clean it up or help it. We're just saying, oh, you a thug, you're black, you're poor, you did something wrong, you a thug, you did something we don't think is right, you a thug. We all should have a point now where it's okay if black people want to use the N-word to denote to themselves, because we should be able to say that that is their term that they have chosen to use. I like to be called a faggot. If I refer to myself as a faggot, guess what? I'm a fucking faggot. I am a faggot because I am proud to be a fucking faggot. Now, I'm also queer, I'm also gender fluid, I'm a bunch of different things that I own. Not that they define me as a personality outside of, conscious, but I'm a faggot. I am 100% a faggot. I don't have to sit here and be like, hey girl, to be a faggot. I'm a faggot. It's just who I am. You know why? Because that shit doesn't bother me. I have people online all the time being like, oh, you're just a fucking faggot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bitch, you think that's actually upsetting me? You think that calling me a faggot is going to be like all that? No. But in a racially charged moment where a white kid is brutally beaten and, what have you, by 4 people who are black, turning around and saying, and then with them screaming, fuck white people, turning around and screaming, thug, you're not diffusing the shit, you're just making the shit worse, because you now are reinforcing in your white privileged self, thug is an appropriate term for a black person. You're not looking at which way you're using thug. You might be like, oh, well, I'm just saying that, in this situation, they's just rude and crude. I don't think of my black friends as thugs. Well, you do, because the minute you appropriate one word onto one group for whatever reason, if they're black, you've just put the appropriation to all black people. Because now in your brain, you now think thug equates to black. Do you see what I'm going with this? I mean, this is how simple this can turn around in terms of your consciousness. I was just at the grocery store going and getting groceries, obviously. What else do you go to a grocery store for? And I've been doing something that I'm going to get into in the next video called trying to connect to my holy guardian angel. Holy guardian angel is a term in Thelema and also occult circles for your highest self, if you will. In one sense, Aleister Crowley decided it was the genius within, and in his later life decided that the holy guardian angel is a completely separate consciousness from ours. However, when we die, the way I understand the holy guardian angel, when we die, we go back to that energy. So Jason gets dissolved, and all the parts of Jason were necessary for Jason to be. In other words, the lessons, the karma, whatever you want to call it. And please don't use karma as because karma is another tit-for-tat bullshit word. Anyways, they go back to the holy guardian angel. Now, according to Thelema, once you connect with your holy guardian angel, you kind of start to really live your divine truth. And so Aleister Crowley developed this through magic and a series of rituals. I, through Reiki, am developing the same thing. So the back on point about all these ways of watching your consciousness, if you put it out there, this guy was driving slow, he looks at me and I'm like, listen, you fucking moron, like, hurry the fuck up. And then something kind of innately attached to the holy guardian angel went, okay, so there's your consciousness right there. That is what you're putting out there. That is what you're projecting onto that person. It really didn't matter the color of his skin, even though he was, turns out he was Middle Eastern or something like that. So now I'm associating moron with Middle Eastern, because just by the visual cue of his ethnicity, now that I have seen him as he is driving on, my brain will now say, this goes to this. You don't have to believe me, but this is what your consciousness does. It attaches itself through your vernacular. Now, going back to this, I understand you want to be angry at what happened to that kid. I understand you want to be outraged at what happened to that kid, but let's look at 4 black kids screaming, fuck Trump, fuck white people, and all the shit that's going on right now. Now, in my personal opinion, Trump is going to make the American system just implode. Like, job losses, lots of shit's going to go wrong. You can disagree with me, and congratulations, welcome to being a human being and having a opinion. You're allowed to. I am not going to fight against that. You want to call me names? Fine, call me names. I own who I am, and I'm not afraid of being called names. Now, long story short, 4 black youth are now seeing a world where they've never known before, because the only people who kind of know what this world that's about to start in the U.S. are people who, like their grandparents, like from the 50s, people who grew up in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, who understand the racist tensions that have never been addressed in the U.S. Inequality within the U.S. Based on color has always been there. And if you don't believe me, look at Trump. Trump is from that era. He is that era. And all the shit he's saying, well, he may not see a problem with it because he's fucking old and that's just what he believes because that's from his generation. These kids are seeing that and they're scared. These kids are now scared to be black. These kids are now scared to be black and poor. We were changing all of that with, supposedly with Obama. But now you have an old white guy who is spewing a bunch of shit that an old white guy from his generation should be spewing. And this old white guy spewing all this racist shit from his time is now in power. And so this old white guy spewing all this racist shit that he doesn't see a problem with is now telling thousands and millions of people that it's okay. And they don't realize that he's an old white guy from a different time who's out of turn. But now these people, because of things like Black Lives Matter and the racial tension that's always been there, are like, wait a minute, I'm proud to be white, but you can't be proud to be white. You gotta be proud to be Irish. You gotta be proud to be Italian. You gotta be proud to be anything but white. And now you got these poor kids who are scared to be anything but black because they don't find safety in the world that they're moving into. And so you have to kind of empathize with the pain and the fear that they're going through. Now, to get to the point where you kidnap someone and brutally beat him and then put that shit on Facebook, that's fucked up. That's sociopathic shit I don't even agree with. I will never agree with. I do not condone at all. But I look at the symptom. I look at where this is coming from. And yes, I'm a white privileged asshole. Everything I say has no value because of the color of my skin and my place in the world. Most of that I'm in Canada. I'm not American. But I grew up in New York. I saw racism when I was growing up as a teenager back in the late 90s. So I understand the tension that's always been there in the States because I used to be the only white kid who hung out with all black kids. These were kids that were from the inner city that were bused up to rich white suburbia to be part of a school which, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, so I kind of got to know some of these kids and I kind of got to understand their stories and I got to listen and I got to understand. Point of the story is understand. I used to hang out in a city called Peekskill. Peekskill was predominantly a black neighborhood. It was kind of like, I hate to use this term, but it was like the poor city of the rich white areas, right? It's kind of like it was a little ghetto, right? So, and I used to hang out up there, and this was a place you didn't want to be white in. It's the same as you didn't want to be white in the Bronx at certain points of the time, But I was there, and I knew people, and I was on a level with people because it wasn't about skin tone. It wasn't about how much money you make, how much money you don't make. It was about brotherhood. It was about unity. It was about togetherness, and it didn't matter where you were. It didn't matter. The people I hung out with, I wouldn't have cared if they were gangster. Like I didn't. If you respected me, I respected you. That's how that worked, and that's what most people think when it comes down to it. Is why should it matter what your skin tone is? Respect is respect, right? But we're losing that point. We're forgetting that. So anyways, my point of all of this is we got to show love. We got to show respect. We got to show all of that. But we have to do it because we need to understand what happened to bring these kids to this point. And you're opening up an America that is making it possible for more and more of this to happen. Because you're basically making America full of fear. An America where white people are more afraid of black people now than ever. Black people are even more afraid than white people than ever. And what do you have? You have nothing but division. You don't have love, you have division. Yes, there were people protesting against Trump. I was about to say Hitler. But you know what? We need to take this deeper than a protest. We need to take this into our communities, and we need to be holding in our communities. And yes, I'm a Canadian, not an American, but y'all need to get your shit together, and y'all need to bring this to your communities where y'all is just joining, Ain't no division. Join that shit, because then you can stop the future situations like what happened with that kid, whose name I cannot remember right now. But again, calling for black kids who are scared shitless in a world that is about to turn rank on them and make it even harder to be young and black. Thugs, That's just cold. That's just fucking racist. There ain't no love in there. There ain't no anger in there. It's bloody fucking racism. That's what that is. You can't excuse it. You can't create it. You can't do anything but understand and own that you're being racist when you're calling black kids thugs. Okay? So let's kind of listen to what everybody's talking about in the world, and let's try and like kind of come to a resolve with these problems, because you know this shit's about to get out of hand. And I don't know about y'all, but I kind of like loving people for who they are, not basing verbal slurs on the color of their skin because I want to feel superior because I'm scared. Because that's just weak. And that's what I told all the people that came after me when I saw that. I was like, y'all be racist, y'all white. First off, there's like 10 people coming at me telling me to fuck myself, but they're all white. Not one of them is colored. And I'm like, you know, so yeah, you're all white, you're all okay with the word thug, and yet the black community has told you time and again in the last 2 years, do not use this word because it is an inappropriate word. Oh no, that doesn't matter. Fuck them. Do you see where the racism is coming from? Peace.